Today, I'll be documenting the case of Raymond Zwiefelhofer and his conviction for sexual abuse against minors using his connections with the 2 by 2 church. This article comes from ABC News, where they go over the general overview of how the trial went and a lot of what Zwiebelhofer was accused of and what he ultimately goes over the heinous and deplorable acts that this fellow right here committed. It also gives a brief history as to what is known about the 2 by 2 church, and it's just an interview with an alleged victim. During the investigation, ABC News spoke with dozens of alleged victims of child sexual abuse across more than 30 states. As part of the ongoing investigation by law enforcement, Raymond Zwiebelhofer was convicted of 10 counts of possessing child sexual abuse material and was sentenced to 120 years in prison last month. And this was published in December of 2024, so be in November of 2024 when that occurred. In total, there were 87 files that were determined to be child sexual abuse material, or sometimes known as Catherine Fu, a Maricopa Deputy County Attorney, told ABC News the 10 charged files were a combination of photos and videos, and they were all depicting children under the age of 15 engaged in either exploitive, exhibition, or sexual conduct. So that's basically what he was accused of. Not going to go too deep into everything that happened. I'm going to link this article in the description below if you want to look a little more into that. But what I was interested in is finding out more about the 2 by 2 church, which apparently doesn't go by the 2 by 2 church, yet it also does. They don't seem to have a common agreement on what this sort of entity should be called, what the nomenclature should be. And so I went out to go find anything about it, and I came across this book. I didn't read the book, but this nice lady, Cynthia, seemed to write a review for it. Essentially, she got into it the same way that I did, finding out about all this, and she decided to read it. Basically, she talks about the author's the author is an alleged victim of the church or claims that she was a part of it at some point, and that's where this comes from. She said that she provides a fairly transparent picture of life in this insular and mysterious religious sect. In some ways, it sounds not dissimilar to other quasi Christian sects with cult like features. They believe they are the true faith, which pretty evident right there because I think a huge issue with a lot of organized religion is that you do come across a lot of these sects that have so many disagreements with one another, and it kind of gets into a political realm, as if like they're always trying to push onto they try to push onto new followers that this is the truth. It's just the selling point of it. Whereas I don't believe that this type of behavior should be used in religion whatsoever. Like, people do have disagreements. I can understand that, but it's just this whole this whole venture of always having to sort of battle each other out, even if you're in the same religious, same religion. It's it just seems a bit counterproductive to the overall goal of what they're trying to achieve by not having sportsman-like kind of, it's just the pathway of saying that this is the true faith and you don't need to listen to the others is just kind of counterproductive, in my opinion. And she continues on and says that, and that one must profess their beliefs, following their dogma to the letter, and be sort of mentored into heaven, that it is not possible to achieve heaven from outside the way, kind of. And this is where it starts to get into kind of the cult aspect of it. There's, again, she says, they call it exclusivity in their lingo. There is that realm of exclusivity that we see a lot of cults follow, and this one is no different. It seems as though that they try to follow a guide of trying to isolate people who are either looking for who have questions and are looking for answers that they can't seem to find within their own religious beliefs, or they're finding people that don't have necessarily the means to say no or get away from it, or they're just vulnerable to influence. And it seems as though that's what a lot of this sect of Christianity is about from what I've read. I mean, I haven't found many people online saying many things defending it that doesn't fall into the realm of this is just a cult, and these people that follow it just get taken advantage of. But also at the end of the day, this exclusivity thing could just also be that, they're trying to separate from mainstream normative kind of pathways of Christianity, and this is why this is what they choose to do. This separation creates more communitive feel to it, and that's what they're trying to achieve. It's just that it kind of feels like when they do this and they start separating themselves off from society in this kind of way with having their own type of practices, it it can come off as a little alarming to people from the outside who are trying to figure out what's going on. They also expect their membership to be pretty active in religious attendance, up to 3 programs on Sundays and a prayer meeting on Wednesdays. I would say this is, I mean, that's whatever, but that, to me, that's just a lot. As well as gospel meetings, which is just like a song concert kind of thing that they do. Go out, everybody sing to each other, or just promotion and all that. Conventions I mentioned above, many of the better known fundamentalist churches have similar calendars that they expect members to support. They purport to read and follow the Bible, and they have a hymn book of all the hymns they prefer. I've seen that a lot from a few other articles. So how are they different from other Christian churches? And this is where it gets a little bizarre. I guess the fact that they don't consider themselves a church organization might be one anomaly. And yes, that is very strange, very unstructured, kind of loose feel to it. Makes it hard to track if you're an outsider, which kind of adds to the isolation aspect to it. They refer to themselves as the Way. The Way is another name of this church. I've seen, like, many different names outside of 2 by 2 and The Way. They also call themselves The Truth, which is just the name of the book as well, which is such a scammy, like, it's a nomenclature that you would associate with scams, in my opinion. Like, that's something that you'd often see. If you have to package and sell it like that, it's probably a huge red flag, and you should not really participate in things that do that. It would seem that they follow the New Testament method of ministry. They do not have a church building and most frequently meet in members' homes. That's not something that I have really heard of people doing too often. Like, I've seen it happen before, but if that's their primary method of going out and doing sermons or whatever, that's a little bizarre. They are anti-tritarian, believing that Jesus was a man who was elevated to be part God by the Holy Spirit, which is that's interesting in of itself, saying that originally Jesus was not born by the seed of God, but instead he becomes sort of entangled within godliness by his revival of the Holy Spirit, which when you think about it is kind of an interesting look to it because would that imply that any man could thus do such a thing? Could any non like based off of their belief, anybody could kind of do that if you have really the right direction in life and if you are following God's will in such a degree. And I think and that definitely goes against what most Christians are taught, but it's also the aspect of another realm that I think is important is that the it's another separation when you are teaching people this and you have like details like this, like things that are like this, it can kind of add to somebody who's trying to learn about it or is being taught it as if like this is achievable. So if I follow what these people are saying, maybe I could do this as well. It kind of gives off that kind of aspect to it, and that could also lead to more isolation and vulnerability whenever you're somebody who's teaching these people these concepts and you are adding this level of control over them. And I think that's important to note when we're talking about especially like a case like this when you have somebody like this going on. Their leaders and workers are in a place of administrators and ministers. The workers do not marry, big one right there. And when they are invited to become workers, like itinerant ministers or missionaries, they give all their worldly possessions to the sect. So they can't marry and they have to give all their possessions to them. They are now homeless and are assigned partners traveling two by two, and members take up the slack, reinforcing accountability kind of thing, as if like it's that psychological concept whenever you have to do somebody a favor and thus it makes them more attached to you, or you do a favor for somebody and you become more attached to them, kind of thing. It reinforces that kind of aspect to it, but you could see how just this short little tangent right here illustrates why the cult allegations seem pretty valid. But it says they pick up the slack and provide them with free board and room while they are in a certain area, and that's just saying like here, you gave us all your stuff, and now we give you a place to eat and sleep, and you should be grateful, that kind of thing. Which I mean, there's no issue with wanting to commit yourself to a place like this, but when you strip yourself of this much, like this is leverage. Like this kind of thing is leverage for yourself. It's value that you can have for yourself. You can do it's something that you have that they don't in case they ever try to pull one over you, I guess in a sense. It's not like you can just it's just saying that whenever they take this away from you, you're giving up another part of yourself to them. They have it, but you don't. And that's the issue that falls in line with a lot of cults that we see, especially throughout history, like such as like the Anthill kids, where a lot of those members had to give in to I believe his name was Ross, had to or Roth, whatever, they had to give in to Roth's demands and give up all their possessions to him to live under him. And we saw how that turned out. It's a power dynamic, and people are always going to It's not always, but people are more than likely going to take advantage of power dynamics, and that's the sad thing about it. They travel from town to town in their large regions. They are apparently around 75,000 members of the way in the world, mostly in English speaking places like the UK, Canada, US, and Australia. The membership dropped significantly by 50% since the 1980s. Yeah, it's not too different. And I saw that number with that corroborates 75K and in this one right here, this article from Tucson.com estimates that there's around 75,000 members. So that seems as though it's a pretty well established number, but it's odd that there's that many members to a religious sect like this when there's such an inconsistency with even the name. The the truth, the way, or the two by twos, it's just they can't seem to make up their mind about it, it seems like. And it just comes off as a little, again, scammy, like I was mentioning earlier with this. It's not just the selling point, but it's also just whoever's in charge of it doesn't really have a good hold over what the leaders of it do. If it's something as basic as just the name of it, they can't settle on a name, so therefore, how can you trust the whoever's leading such an organization to be able to manage how their members are going to function within it, you know? And then one important thread in the book is the mysterious, often nefarious nature of the administration of this sect, which is what I was getting into prior. They do not publish any literature or tracts related to their beliefs, basically just covering their tracks, related except for hand poster invitations to the gospel meetings. They do not own land or church buildings. They apparently feel free in some countries to avoid any expenses, which, I mean, in the US, you don't get taxed if you're recognized as a religious organization, since they also purportedly do not receive salaries as workers or leaders and workers. So they don't even pay them either. So that's another aspect to it that's a little odd, having these so-called workers do these tasks for you, operate under your sort of jurisdiction, if you will, and they don't get paid. The financial situation is not available to members of the sect. The author suggests that there must be some explanation for all the surplus money that is banked, possibly with offshore accounts in places like Switzerland, whatever. I don't agree with that. I think it's just they have donors or they just have like a booster. They have people that have like leaders who have actual jobs and they just kind of pump their own money into all this. And then this is where they get into this aspect of it. This paragraph is important. The other important thread in the book involves the explosion of reports of child sexual abuse and rape. The author actually uses only about 25% of the book to go into these abuses. So a quarter of the book is basically her going into all these accounts that she knows firsthand. But she also includes a number of references to online forums. The internet has had an impact in this sect, as it has had in all other religious communities where predation has reared its ugly head over the past many decades. I mean, I think we all know what she's referring to there. Immediately, we all think of like the Catholic Church involved in activities like that. Womb provides links to the 2 by 2 support pages and other interesting links that aim to provide something like history, member education, and general information about this sect. It is frustrating for those who truly care about child welfare to find out that the pedophiles involved in this community, mostly workers and elders, did not keep good records of their whereabouts during their work. And see, that's what and that's another aspect of it that makes me think that this is a systemic kind of problem. They don't keep paper trails. They have this isolative taking possessions, or seizing of possessions kind of aspect to it. It seems as though that this guy, I highly doubt he's alone. And if he was, there he was being helped out. I highly doubt that he's the only one that was committing these horrible acts. And especially if he has child porn on his computer, I wouldn't be surprised if he was sharing them as well in some regards. But and we have a different article from Tucson.com, part of the Arizona Daily Star, and it kind of goes into a big part of the history for the 2 by 2 church, goes over some of the locations that were involved with a lot of Zwiefelhofer's horrible acts, and it's also just goes over the investigation made by the FBI. So I'll link this one down below because we're not interested in the actual accounts of the acts committed. So now we get into the whole dynamic of where the money was coming from. And this isn't something that's verified. Now, this isn't something that is verifiable proof of how they were able to fund it, but it Zwiebelhofer, it shows here, former legal tech company president. He owned a company called World Docs, which was a document management software company. Ironic, if you will. It says here the former president of legal document management company World Docs has been sentenced by a court in Arizona to 120 years in prison after being found guilty of 10 counts possessing child porn. Raymond Zwiebelhofer had been president of World Docs since 2009 when police in Tempe, Arizona arrested him on suspicion of possessing child porn. It says that the company was acquired by Net Documents, which is another management software company. Says that he's not guilty and that I'm just a nice guy. But essentially, it's just a lot of the suspicion I have is that the way that the money gets made to fund this type of operation is just through people like this who are a part of it. I'm sure that Zwiebelhofer was making a fat stack of moolah owning a company like this, and he could probably fund a lot of the expenditures that the church would incur throughout their time having him. And I'm sure people before him were able to fund it as well, and I'm sure they probably also took donations outside of the actual church itself. Can be an issue. And we go into the Fox 10 Phoenix report, which goes into his arrest video, which he kinda looks like Hugh Hefner in this. Um, Tempe, and then this is what they go over in the body cam video. Police search warrant, come to the front door with nothing in your hands. Officers were heard in a body cam video. The video was taken on the morning of September 6, 2022, as the Tempe police officers wait for Zwiebelhofer. The video captures Zwiebelhofer's reaction to the swarm of police signaling the start of his downfall, and I love this, such a fucking boomer quote. "Holy mackerel!" he exclaims. Uh, yeah, essentially this goes over his arrest, and I think it's just he was getting his victims from the church, and it's just an odd set of circumstances to have there not be anybody else involved, or at least as far as we know of from the investigations or from any articles I've seen online. Because it's seen, although actual names haven't been said that I've seen, it just seems very doubtful to me that he acted alone in all this. It was just very it just seems very unlikely to me that he acted alone in this type of I'm sure in the years to come we'll probably find more members of this church to come to light as being a part of it, either directly involved in the directly involved in sexual abuse against minors, abuse against maybe just abuse in general, or people who were accomplices to them, people who helped facilitate these actions to occur, because that's what often happens. That's just how the power pyramid goes. You have people who are near the top, and they always have their underlings who are always willing to do stuff for them. I highly doubt that this is going to be the last that we see of this case. And overall, I just wanted to give a general background to what this is about, because I haven't seen many other places online give as much attention to this case as I think it deserves, because it seems as though it's a decently large, although obscure, it's a decently large organization that has these types of, say, people lingering in it, and the fear is that there's going to be many more victims that come out of it.